Hi friends! Today I'm going to be filming a video that was specially requested by one of you guys, one of the viewers, which is super cool. And that video is essays that got me into college. Insert graphics there. In other news, if you can see these, this was my senior grad dance dress and this was my graduation dress because in fun news, I did in fact graduate. I now have one diploma under my belt, aiming for at least 2 more. And I kind of meant to vlog, but I kind of got caught up in the heat of the moment, if you will. So I have one clip, and that's just the exit part. Not even like, we didn't throw our caps or anything. I'm in a class of like 900 people, so that'd be insane. But we did exit as a crew, and here's that clip. Alright, so I'll be reading off a few different essays. One of them is my commonapp essay, the one that every school got to see. Big Mama, one that was supposed to encapsulate my life story, or at least an anecdote that kind of talks about me as a person. So that one felt was very important. I'll be reading off my Vermont essay, because obviously it's the school that I'm going to, and I keep shoehorning it into every video that I make. I'll be talking about my Macalester essay, just because it's a interesting prompt and I don't think it changes very often, so that might be helpful for any of you Macalester applicants. I'll be doing my commonapp additional information section because I did submit one. You don't have to, it is optional, but I had a few independent studies that I needed to elaborate on because otherwise schools would be like, what the fuck is this? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to be reading off any of the ones that for schools that I didn't get into, because why would I do that? I do have an IU essay, but it's boring as hell and pretty disingenuous, so I'm not going to do that one. So first off is my commonapp essay, which I wrote about a research trip that I took to Hawaii with a group of awesome teenagers. This was the summer of 2021, and it was fantastic, and I loved it so much, and I still connect with all those people. We're in a big old group chat. It's a really nice thing. But I wrote about that trip just because it was pretty life-changing, and it did kind of inspire my interest in the stuff that I applied for, the economics, international relations, politics, all that kind of stuff, because it was about history, so like World War II, and with that I will begin reading, and all of these I'm going to be reading off my phone, so if it looks like I'm looking down, that's what that is. I'm not trying to be impolite. I'm really bearing my soul with this. It's kind of scary. It's one thing for a student to sit in a history classroom, absorbing what they can while simultaneously pondering what they'll be doing once the last bell of the day rings. It was another experience entirely to observe the Hawaiian landscape out of a window of a plane flying halfway around the world, listening to my teacher, who I now think of as a friend, talk about the Battle of Guadalcanal. I haven't read this in a while, so if I cringe. When I was selected to study World War II in a 2-year program culminating in an immersion week in Hawaii to see through the eyes of a man fighting for the freedom of his country, one thought cycled through my mind. This is going to change my life. For the better. It's corny. With a group of 14 other, it was supposed to be 15, but one girl dropped out because she was from American Samoa and their COVID restrictions were really super strict, which sucks. With a group of 14 other high school student-teacher teams selected from across the United States, we took the notion of learning by doing to a new extreme as we traveled from museum to active military base to National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, the Punch Bowl, as it is colloquially known. The National History Day Sacrifice for Freedom program has done me a greater service than connecting me to history. It has connected me to the world at large, and to the importance of events that happened before us. Even as I researched Major Bernays Thurston, a World War II hero from my hometown of Indianapolis, much of the growing feeling of community and mutual respect for the past stemmed from forum posts and emails by my fellow program members. One program member put out a call for a pen pal, which on a whim I accepted, and it still astonishes me what fast friends we became. Shout out to you, Anna from North Dakota, if you're watching this right now. That goes for every person I met during my week in Hawaii. A group chat was established at the first dinner we had together, and that chat has remained active months later. Not so much anymore, now it's just kind of us texting when we want to celebrate someone's birthday. On the last night before our flights back home, we all played cards in our pajamas like we'd known one another for years. As for the program itself, every day was something new and stirringly meaningful. From the memorials at the USS Missouri and USS Utah to the hike up to Makapu'u Point Lighthouse Trail, for a panoramic view of Oahu, to the engaging lectures at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, one of the most significant experiences for me was the tour of the USS Bowfin, led by the Bowfin Submarine Museum's Director of Education. While the engine room luckily never got to the 130-degree temperatures of which he spoke, I was completely immersed every time I crawled through a passageway into the next compartment. Studying history simply lacks the impact when it's not done through lived experiences. If generations of the future are unable to see historic locations and relive their meaning for themselves, I worry that the information and the chance for understanding will be lost. This concern, and my desire to keep history alive, are what motivated me to apply for the National History Day program in the first place. It was actually because my Quiz Bowl coach came up to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Hawaii?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." So I wrote a little essay and I got chosen, which was pretty sweet. I was right when I said the trip would change me for the better. What remains now is how I hold up my end of the bargain. How do I take what I've learned and share it with the world? The best option, the one I can envision for myself, is where I continue studying international relations and history. The discipline is dynamic. It doesn't wait for anybody. What am I talking about? A kingdom can be overthrown and converted into a state in a matter of less than a century. When those sorts of events take place, I want to be following along with them, mind at the ready to strategize the international community's next move. It's one thing for a student to sit in a history classroom. It's another to study the sites of international relations in person. But it's another entirely to change the fate of the world as it happens. I think much too highly of myself, apparently. But I submitted that to every school I applied to, so 14 different colleges and universities read that and acted accordingly. So general feedback, the Common App essay is supposed to be 650 words or fewer. I did like 648. I really wanted to just pack it all in there. I think what worked in this is that I just kind of talked about like the actions that I enjoyed, but also the interpersonal aspects of the trip that I also enjoyed and what parts I got out of that. I don't know, it's fine. I think it works. I think it's pretty what you should be writing, you know? Maybe it's not the most heartfelt, I guess. It's not like I'm writing about like some personal misfortune or something. I really don't know. There are probably other videos on this subject on what makes a good Common App essay. That's just the one that I submitted, and it worked in some cases and it didn't work in others. So to that same vein, in that same area of submitting to every school, I also submitted a Common App additional information section because I took a few independent studies. One was AP Microeconomics, which I didn't even take the exam for, so to call that an AP class would be a joke. And then the other one was a year-long philosophy class, sort of. It was with my philosophy teacher. I had the class the year before, but we kind of were just like, hey, I have an extra period in my senior year. Can I just hang out with you and write research papers? Which is what I did. In my explanation of that, I wrote, one of the classes in my senior year schedule is a course that was not originally offered by my school, semicolon. I felt compelled to push for its creation to supplement my social sciences focus. After taking... this is so pretentious and I hate it. After taking honors level critical thinking junior year, my teacher offered me the opportunity to complete an advanced independent study in any field of philosophy I wanted to investigate. However, before I could officially be enrolled in the class, I was required to examine the Indiana Department of Education course catalog to find an approved class in my state that aligned with the course my teacher and I were designing. This is actually true. And my administration was like, what the f*** are you talking about? Why do you even need to look at this? Why are you making this so complicated? This proved to be more difficult than I expected. Facts. The class was audited by the school board, and my teacher was required to re-examine his files to prove that the class had been previously approved by the board. Eventually, after a meeting with the assistant principal, an honors level class called Topics in Social Science was created. That's kind of not true, because they didn't actually give me an honors credit for it. In the first quarter of this year, as part of this class, I investigated neo-imperialism through my economic... What the f*** am I talking about? This is gibberish to me. In the first quarter of this year, as part of this class, I investigated neo-imperialism through economic globalization to answer the question, how is power maintained when forced onto others? My research involved attending class daily, reading several books such as Vladimir Lenin's Imperialism and Intan Suwandi's Value Chains, The New Economic Imperialism, and taking in-depth notes. By the end of the first semester, I completed a multi-page essay with footnotes, including my thesis regarding the utilization of imperialistic practices by the global north to exploit the south. That's overstating it. My research paper was not as good or interesting as that. The essay is slated to be published in Military Review. No, it's not. My second quarter sustained investigation will be to answer the question, what keeps a system of power active once the initial force is gone, particularly as applied to several case studies of communism. I will once again apply to have the work published. I did not. So that was my additional information. I don't know that it paid off. My Macalester one. So this one has an interesting prompt, and it's not one that I'd seen before, so I'll read the prompt as well as the essay. Macalester is one of the few highly selective liberal arts colleges located in the middle of a metropolitan area. Students benefit from the strong sense of community on campus and opportunities to engage in academic, social, and civic engagement options in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Have you thought about how Macalester's location might impact your experience? If so, in what ways? 500 words max. I was like, no, not really, because I applied to a bunch of schools more just because they were liberal arts colleges than like the location. I didn't really care. I made some stuff up, and I actually really do like Minneapolis, St. Paul. When I went to visit, I was like, wow, good public transportation, walkable, aesthetically pleasing. I can dig it. Learning can neither start nor end in the classroom. I don't like reading these. With the advantage of Macalester College's bilateral urban location, a student can experience life on its traditional campus while having easy access to both Minneapolis and St. Paul's downtowns for cultural and athletic activities, as well as volunteer and internship/job opportunities. Outside of academic life, yet still encompassing the realm of learning experience, the Twin Cities have 16 museums of various kinds. For one glowing example, some of this was edited by my mom, so that could be part of it. For one glowing example, the Bakken Museum with its innovative interactive exhibits. Access to educational spaces beyond the classroom is a natural tie of the college experience to the city and beyond. As for the beyond, if I were to study abroad in Macalester's Perspectives on Globalization program in The Hague, Netherlands, which is a compelling option given my interest in a career in international law. That was definitely my mother. She really wants me to go to law school. We'll see. I would, of course, make use of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. I talk way too much about the f***ing airport. For that experience and the other international opportunities I'm interested in integrating into my undergrad experience, the airport is a massive convenience I wouldn't find at most similar caliber liberal arts schools, which tend to be in remote areas. That is true, I do have to do a layover flight to Burlington when I'm gonna be flying there this fall, but like, who gives a f*** about the airport, my man? When I envision my potential college experience, I'm grateful that Macalester offers programs catered to those with a natural inclination toward community outreach. Macalester's Civic Engagement Center would keep me informed of and involved in global and political issues and events. Oh, oh god. And I'm completely in tune with Mac's belief that academic and civic development is crucial for a life of public contribution. I know I would be heavily involved with the Civic Engagement Center, as well as the International Studies Department, likely either as an international development or human rights and humanitarianism major. It may be too early for me to know the exact path I want to pursue, but with the flexibility of a liberal arts education, I don't have to commit until I've been given the chance to explore all the disciplines that interest me. This is actually true. I think that's one thing I semi-dislike about UVM, is that I would prefer if they would give me a more regimented course load, because at the moment I'm working on trying to register for classes and I have no idea what the f*** I'm doing, because there's a million, and I would like them to just tell me, no, you're gonna take this one, then this one, then this one. I'm okay with just being told what to do, you know, have at me. Ew. Macalester is one of the oldest, broadest, and deepest programs at any liberal arts college in the world. I assume that was about the international relations thing. I don't actually, like, what? Oldest programs of what? I don't clarify. That's the kind of opportunity I'm seeking in an international studies program. I connect globalization and transnational systems beyond just the social sciences. With the advantage of the Twin Cities at my doorstep, I could complete an IES-focused international studies focused academic internship, which I consider key to my development as a global scholar. Also in line with a school that cares so deeply about commitment and inclusivity, a specialty living opportunity like Eco House, it's like their environmental, like, living community on campus, sounds like a perfect way for a climate activist to experience independent living and make lifelong connections based on a shared passion for the environment. I will talk about that in my UVM essay. I coined myself as a climate activist. A fulfilling college experience is not limited to studying. Not only does Macalester maintain a beautiful, comfortable, and lively campus, lively, a considerable feat in a metropolitan area where it could be susceptible to the risk of sinking into mismanagement and unsustainability, it has also cleared its students' path to the rest of the world. So, overall, I think that's fine, you know? I think I answered the prompt. Like, for those who want to get into specifics, what parts of the metro area do you like? What parts of the on-campus parts do you like? You know, that kind of jazz. So I talked about parts of Minneapolis-St. Paul, and then parts of Macalester's campus in particular. So, and then kind of tried to unify the two, be like, yeah, you can't have one without the other, which I think that works, you know? My f***ing UVM water bottle. They sent this to me. Thank you. Okay, and the prompt for UVM, this one was, well, the essay is optional and there are a few different ones. One of them is like, write about what kind of f***ing Ben & Jerry's ice cream you'd be, and I had no ideas whatsoever because I'm not creative like that. I want nice, boring, simple college essays, which is what I went with. Because it was just like, describe a time you've learned in a non-traditional setting, and before I made the Hawaii one my commonapp essay, I was just gonna do that as this, because like, doesn't that make sense? Non-traditional setting, I'm like, you know, walking around, hiking and shit. But instead, I did not do that. I talk about some of the stuff I did with a climate organization based here in Indiana. I know for a fact this one is pretentious. If my generation is not the one fighting for climate advocacy, I worry there won't be anyone left to do it. My rationale for involving myself with a statewide youth action committee confront the climate crisis is twofold. Not only are our team members becoming better versed in state-level legal systems, but we're also forming a coalition with green organizations, businesses, and unions to win the fight against the existential threat of climate change. You know what? Honestly, that sounds like something that UVM could get behind. They could dig that. And now I have to brag about myself. As the policy director for Confront the Climate Crisis, my work has allowed me to meet powerful politicians and business executives, many of whom surprised me with their willingness to listen to teenagers. Teenagers fighting for what we believe is important, sure, but teenagers nonetheless. One particularly eye-opening experience was having a front row seat to hear Bernie Sanders speak at a town hall meeting in rural Indiana. This one is really Vermont catered, you can tell. Just like, hey, I saw Bernie one time. You know, your guy, your man. Your home slice. They can get behind that. The moment Senator Sanders stepped on stage, we bolted to our feet and raucously applauded. We were dressed in our Confront the Climate Crisis t-shirts, and when he gave us a nod, acknowledging the message that our shirts had displayed, I felt validated in the efforts of our grassroots group. After an introductory speech, Bernie, talking about him like we're friends, Bernie yielded the microphone to several residents of the town, many of whom spoke positively about the impact of the stimulus checks during COVID-19. These were salt-of-the-earth people, Americans in the heartland, capital H. They felt the effects of climate change, just as we all will, with the additional perspective as farmers and blue-collar workers. Hearing their thoughts on an issue I care about deeply inspired me to continue my efforts as a climate activist. If I were to attend the University of Vermont, now a when, haha, as a global studies major, I would hone my experiences both on the front lines of peaceful protest on the floor of the Indiana House of Representatives. The climate crisis is a concern that transcends bipartisanship, alliances, and national borders as a whole. My interests lie in the collaborative nature of international politics, so even though Confront the Climate Crisis is yet to go global, hopefully, my involvement in the group is what laid the foundation upon which I can build at the University of Vermont. It's kind of funny because I've basically dropped out of Confront at this point. If I can make waves now through learning in a non-traditional setting, you know, because it's like the prompt, gotta like shove that in there. Imagine what I can do with a comprehensive curriculum like the one found at UVM. So that one was just complete brown nosing, which you might need to do. Just like, for a school that you like in particular, just make a point of, you know. Oh, my Trinity one is the exact same thing as my UVM essay, just replace the school name, so that worked. So yeah, that's an overview of the kinds of things that I wrote about for college. I hope that helps in some capacity. It was mostly me just roasting my old essays, which is probably healthy, you know. You get kind of trapped in this mindset of like, everything I'm saying is brilliant and everyone's gonna love it. But obviously essays are not all that goes into your application. Sure, they play a part and you do want to make sure that they're actually representing you in a way that's meaningful. I think I come off as very pretentious in these, and I wish I didn't. They don't really sound like the way I talk on a day-to-day, so I would have made them more conversational. To that viewer who requested this, is this what you want? Hope so. I hope I learn how to write better in the future. And once again, if you have any recommendations or suggestions for videos, just leave them down in the comment section. Love and appreciate all of you. Thanks for sticking with me.